Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm really glad to see you today in our dialogue. And you know that we started this activity, global activity, last year, and today I think it's we spent almost 30 weeks together. It's good work for us. And thank you, everybody. And today we have facilitator from International uh, Institute of Culture Affairs, and Martin Gilbraith is going to facilitate our session. And I don't want to spend a lot of time right now, and want to pass leadership Martin right now. And thank you, Martin, to be with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Svetlana, and hello everybody. My name is Martin Gilbraith. I'm currently serving as president of ICA International, the Institute of Cultural Affairs, and I'm located in London in the UK. I'm sorry you can't see my name on the screen in front of you, but in case you don't believe me, there's my business card. So I'm very grateful, very happy to have the opportunity to join this call with you all today. Our topic today is human development, and human development is how ICA describes its mission. We talk about ICA as being concerned with the human factor in world development, and we describe our mission as being advancing human development worldwide. So this session today is the first of a pair of online dialogues where we're going to explore what do we mean by human development, and what does that mean? What does that look like in practice? So Larry Philbrook is also here with us today, at least for now. He'll be leading next week's session. Today I'm going to invite us to look at what do we mean by human development, and next week Larry will be leading a dialogue about what does it look like in practice. I'm going to invite you all to introduce yourselves in just a moment, but first I'd just like to share with you a definition of human development from UNDP, and I'm going to put it in the chat on the right so you can see it there. UNDP says human development is about expanding the richness of human life, I see it's the chat is a bit messed up, but human development is about expanding the richness of human life rather than simply the richness of the economy in which human beings live. It's an approach that's focused on people and their opportunities, and you can see the link there if you want to follow the link to the web page to see more detail of that. So we're going to talk about human development starting from that definition. But before we get into that, let's find out who's in the room, and let's hear something about your own experience or your own interest in development, human development or otherwise. So I'd like to ask everybody, please, to share in turn, and I'll put the question in the chat pod as well. Your name and your location, and something of your experience of development, organizational or community development. I'll start by just saying a little bit more about myself. I said my name is Martin Gilbraith and I'm located in London. My experience of organization and community development has been largely with ICA, with the Institute of Cultural Affairs. It's in fact 30 years ago this year in June that I first got involved with ICA by joining ICA UK's International Volunteer Programme. Just fresh out of university, I volunteered with ICA to be a volunteer in a community project in India, working very much at the grassroots with the poorest of the poor in integrated community development. The focus very much on people and their opportunities and choices. And I've worked with ICA in various roles ever since, on and off, including most recently as president of ICA International in a voluntary capacity. And for my day job, I'm a freelance facilitator and consultant working largely within organizations, humanitarian and development organizations, facilitating change. So that's me. Let me turn, if I may, to Larry next, just in case we lose you later, Larry, to make way for others, and then I'll invite everybody else to introduce themselves. Larry?
Sure. This is Larry Philbrook. I'm going to leave as soon as I finish introducing myself, since I'm the 10th space. As long as I'm here, nobody else can join. I'm also with ICA. I'm based in Taiwan. I do work in organizational and community development, primarily facilitating and supporting individuals and groups in developing their own plans and methodologies for change. So I look forward to talking to everybody next week, and I will be lurking, or whatever you call it, when you're watching all this on YouTube and typing in notes from that side. But I won't. My face won't appear down here anymore. So take care, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Larry.
Bye. Thank you, Larry, very much.
And let me invite you to introduce yourselves from left to right, if I may, as you appear on my screen. So that means Anupama, you would be first. Have I pronounced your name right?
Yes, absolutely right. I think your stint in India must have helped you to pronounce it right.
Are you in India?
Yes, very much. I'm in Mumbai, India. And so my name is Anupama Ishwaran, and I run an organization called In Harmony. We primarily work in the area of diversity and inclusion. We work with corporates, companies, and look at how organizations can leverage the diversity that is existing, bring in more diversity in the workplace, and how to make it a more inclusive work environment. Besides this, we also look at many programs in the employee wellness space, so through counseling and many other short module programs to help them to live, like, I think, a little bit towards the human development part, which looks at their personal life rather than only the workspace. Mm-hmm. So I'm based in Mumbai, and yeah, so that's it.
And you've been to many of these, you've joined in many of these chats before, these dialogues?
Yes, I have been in this dialogue since October. I met John at the International Association of Facilitation here in Mumbai in October, and he introduced us to the dialogue, and since then I've been very active in this
Excellent.
space.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me go to Debra, please. Would you like to introduce yourself, Debra?
Yes, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Debra Vellum. I am an American living in Kiev, Ukraine. The first part of my life was essentially spent in business development and the corporate world. And over the last year or so, I have been transitioning more towards the cultural side of things. I'm currently working for a cultural and education center here in Ukraine. And part of what the mission of this organization is to look at developing Ukraine through education and culture, and connecting it on a wider scale through cultural means as much as sort of some of the political and economic and diplomatic means that are going on.
Very interesting, thank you. And are you also a regular in these dialogues?
Well, I've been a regular for the last two. I met Svetlana just about a month ago, and she had informed me of this, and I loved the mission and the idea of what this is about, and so this is now my second one.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
And who's next? I see your name just as Media IC. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Лиля. Лилечка, вы можете? I can say a couple words about Lilia because she helped us with technical support, and Lilia from Ukraine, and she moved to Poland right now. She's a journalist, and now she supports Media IC Foundation, and she works for Ukrainian radio channel for migrants, and she came to Poland with her daughter, and her daughter made decision to study in Poland, and it was very difficult decision for Lilia to live in Poland or to come back to Ukraine. But anyway, she met Media IC team, and now she's part of this team. And thank you, Lilia, and thank you, Sergey, and thank you, Media IC, for this opportunity for everybody. not only for Lilia, but for us also.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Lilia. And who is next? Nancy, can we go to you? Can you hear us, Nancy?
Nancy, you are muted. Could you play a little bit with your microphone and I believe that we will hear you.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. My name is Nancy Biwott. I'm Kenyan, based currently in Nairobi, Kenya. I've been a regular in the meeting, so I missed the
Nancy, I'm sorry, could you hold your microphone close to your mouth? You're a little distant.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Nancy. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I've been a regular in the meetings, so I missed the last two. I've worked in development for around 5 years. I currently work for an education program, and I facilitate social inclusion in terms of ensuring access for people with disability, for women, for people in rural communities, and any other groups of excluded people. Yeah, I think that's what I'm supposed to say. Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for joining. And Svetlana, would you like to say a little bit more about yourself and your experience in development?
I'm Svetlana Solomatova. I'm from Ukraine. I'm vice president of global organization, which leading right now by Martin Gilbraith, and I hope I help him a little bit to lead this organization. And I love people very much, and I love to see how people in one room have dialogue, and even if they are in one room and keep silence, it's very, very passion for me. Because I love people in one room very much. And 4 years ago, when I meet the TOP methodology, technology of participation tool in my life, and this tool totally turn around my life, because like Deborah said before, before she came into Ukraine, she has activity in corporative level, and I had activity in business level in Ukraine. And as most of Ukrainian women and people, I was looking ways for survive and for survive of my family, and I was looking ways how to keep balance between corruption in Ukraine and my personality without corruption. It was so difficult to make business in Ukraine. But after TOP came to my life, and Institute of Culture Affairs, it's during 4 years I live in really different field, and this methodology helped me to keep balance for sure right now. And I see how many people we help right now in Ukraine. Now we have 400 TOP facilitators in Ukraine, and we grew up. We still grow up. And thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Martin.
Thank you, Svetlana, and thank you for hosting these dialogues. Lily, let us turn to you, please. You're muted. Would you like to unmute and introduce yourself?
It's impossible for Lily says it. I introduced Lily. She is journalist from Ukraine, and she living in Poland.
Oh, I see. So who is the other? Who is Lily in twice?
Double, or? Yes, it's double Lily.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see.
And media I see also, and we had John, and I saw John in this room, but she left. Maybe he had bad internet connection right now.
Oh, I see. So we've heard from everybody, have we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. In that case, let me turn us and our attention back to the definition, if I may. You can see it in the group chat. I'll read it again. Human development is about expanding the richness of human life rather than simply the richness of the economy in which human beings live. It's an approach that focused on people and their opportunities and choices. So that's a definition of human development from UNDP, from the United Nations Development Programme. What strikes you, first of all, about that definition? Anybody? What strikes me is the assumption that development might be only about the economy. I know it's the media tends to refer to development as economic development, but it's never been my attitude. So I find it almost surprising that we have to add the word human to development to make it about people. What about anybody else? What strikes you first about the definition?
I would agree with that, in fact, it was only when I thought about country development versus human development that all of a sudden it clicked in my head that most of what the conversation is around country development. It's around political, at least here in Ukraine, it's political development, economic development. If they talk about social development, it tends to be in a very big, broad bucket, but not necessarily down to an individual level. So for me, what was interesting is my automatic default to development being something outside of an individual or humanistic perspective, but just something much bigger.
So by calling it human development, it brings in a micro perspective as well as a macro perspective. It's about individuals as well as about economies or societies or communities or organizations, for that matter. Anybody else?
I think to me also it looks like, you know, unless there is a people develop. I think John is joining us.
Take care. All right.
I'll come and invite you to introduce yourself in just a moment.
Okay, so I almost see that, you know, it is to be in tandem. You can't have an economy which is rich or growing where and the human or the people human factor is not developed. So unless there are people are growing and there are opportunities, your economy cannot sustain whatever growth is being talked about.
Right.
So that's the way I look at. I think almost like what you just.
Thank you.
And it also reminds me of something I very recently read. So I'm a follower of Buddhism, and this was exactly a definition which we had read very recently about the fact that you know, unless people grow, I mean, we all focus on the economy and its richness, and we invariably never talk about human factor and its growth. And you need to have a special focus on human development. So it just brought me back to that conversation which I had very recently.
Thank you very much. John, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself? And while you're at it, also, if you've had a chance to read this quote, tell us what strikes you about the quote, the definition of human development.
I got the first bit about introducing myself. What was the other bit?
Just introduce yourself first, and then I'll fill you in.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of technical problems, so I can hear, but I can't see anything at the moment. I don't know if you guys can see me.
I can hear you very clearly, but I don't see your. I don't see your face. No, but we can hear well.
Anyway, some of you know my face, and you do, Martin. Okay, so apologies, I've been struggling to get on and offline, but my name's John. I'm in Nairobi in Kenya. I've been in and out of the dialogues, but since we started, and this, you know, we've been looking at issues around discrimination and inclusion, and we've had quite a nice mix of people from different places. I work with an organisation called VSO Jitole. Jitole means to volunteer, and I'm also part of IAF, International Association of Facilitators.
Thank you, John. So welcome. So the particular focus for today's session, the first of two on human development, is about what do we mean by human development, and we're starting by looking at the definition from UNDP, which I've put in the chat in the chat column on the right. It says human development is about expanding the richness of human life rather than simply the richness of the economy in which human beings live. It's an approach that's focused on people and their opportunities and choices. So John or Nancy or Svetlana or anybody, what strikes you particularly about this definition?
I think for me what strikes me
I got...
Let's go to Nancy first, please, and then John and Svetlana.
Yeah, what strikes me about the definition is the whole aspect of richness of human life, which for me is so many things. I've been trying to think about how to pin it down to one thing, and I think it's just a multidimensional description, and it requires very many sort of dimensions to approach richness of human life. Yeah, that's my thinking.
Thank you. Thank you. And John?
Yeah, I mean, I came in the back of what Anupama was saying about you know, moving beyond just economic measurement.
And
Svetlana?
yes, and what I don't like in this definition for sure, it's I feel bad very much when I feel this connection between economy and human, and now we see this conflict in Ukraine. We are living in this conflict in Ukraine, and we lose part of Ukraine in this very strong connection. I'm sorry for my English. I try to send my message to you like any language, but anyway, my feeling is very bad because west of Ukraine, we have people who live in the west of Ukraine who have very strong connection between economy and human development, and we have a different part of Ukraine, west of Ukraine, who has less connection between human development and economy, but they have more strongly connection between human and spiritual life of human. Mm-hmm. And we have center of Ukraine who try to keep balance between it. But I live in capital of Ukraine. It's like Kiev is the same like maybe any capital in any country, and most people come to Kiev to looking for a better or richness life, and everybody are looking for money here. And I think that if I go to have a chance to go to UN, and I first I ask to refresh this definition. Because human life is not only touch economy. It's very important part of human life, but it's not main part of human life.
Absolutely. The other thing that strikes me is it reminds me very strongly of the model that ICA uses in human and in organizational community development. We have a model of social process which says that there are three dynamics, three basic dynamics in society. There's the economic dynamic that provides sustenance for people, and then there's the political dynamic that provides order, and there's the cultural dynamic that provides meaning. And we called ourselves the Institute of Cultural Affairs because we recognized in the 70s that the economic dynamic was dominant and the political dynamic was allied to the economic, and the cultural dynamic was weak. So our mission, another way of talking about our mission, is that it's about strengthening the cultural dynamic in society in order to bring balance to the social process. And it occurs to me that richness of human life, I guess, encompasses to some extent the political as well as the cultural, but I think from my perspective the richness is primarily to do with the meaning. A rich life is a life filled with meaning, I think, but also a life in which you have an opportunity to participate and make a difference, an equal opportunity to participate and make a difference. So I think the definition does begin to bring in the cultural and the political as in addition to the economic. What questions or concerns does the UN description raise for us? Svetlana was just saying that it focuses rather much on the economic. Are there any other questions or concerns that it raises for you? Feel free to follow the link if you like, and look at the web page where I got this. The link takes you to a page where you can see the definition, but also a little graphic model describing the relationship of people, opportunities, and choice. Any questions or concerns?
And we have a lot of conversation here in Ukraine about culture also, and like traditional post-Soviet Union countries focused on culture subject very much, and we lose economical part very much, because I think that we're proud very much to be leader in the world in economical field. but we see result of this of this proudness. And I like your triangle, Martin, very much, and thank you for this conversation, for today's conversation, because before today we never had the opportunity to talk about our mission, and today conversation about our mission also, and it's really new for me to hear your opinion also. And I like your triangle, and I think it's very good to keep, how to say in English, triangle with totally the same size.
Balance. Yeah.
Is balance, yes.
Equilateral triangle,
yes,
rather than
equilateral,
a lopsided
yes.
triangle. Yeah.
And I think we must focus on this. And I have a question: what role of each of us in this triangle? And I think that it's very important to find our role in this triangle, and understand where is your weak side and power side. Because if you thinking about only culture, your triangle never will be equal. If you talk about economical and focus on economical side, and you will have the same.
Yeah. ICA called itself the Institute of Cultural Affairs because its analysis suggested that the cultural dynamic in society was weak globally and in most places, but not always and not everywhere. I was very struck one time when I went to work in Northern Ireland. I've done quite a lot of work in Northern Ireland, part of the United Kingdom, but quite distinct from other parts of the United Kingdom. And we did an analysis of social process with a group there, which made very clear that actually in that particular culture, very distinct culture, the cultural dynamic in society is very, very strong, and the political is allied to the cultural, and the economic was weak. And a large part of the approach of the peace process in Northern Ireland has been to improve the economy for people in order, some might say, to distract them from investing too much in their cultural and religious symbolism, which brings people into conflict.
But at the same time, culture is very important for development of organization, not only for development for human development, but culture is core of any organization, and we know that most successful organization and people with I don't know, is it right to say good culture? but it's not good, not good, but it's like synchronized these things and balance this, to keep balance and synchronized.
Can I ask a question? Do you have a definition of culture that you use? Like, what is comprised of culture? Is it religion and language and art and the stories of a country, or how do you define culture actually?
The model I'm talking about is what is called as the social process triangle. It's a triangular model showing the economy, the politics, and the culture as three poles of a triangle, and within each of those so that triangle is divided into three triangles. Within each small triangle, you can divide it into another three, and each of those can be divided into another three and another three, and the analysis goes down to 8 levels. It's a bit overwhelming actually, but I suppose we don't have ICA, I think, doesn't have a simple narrative definition of culture, but that model essentially is our definition. And yes, it's everything that helps to bring meaning. So it's very much symbol and story and song. Religion is in there, but secular symbolism also. I don't remember what the Larry will tell you next week. He would probably remember what all the subcomponents are. But yes, it's certainly our definition in ICA, our definition of culture. It's not just about song and dance, for example. It's not just about art. It's about all things that bring meaning, all ways of finding meaning.
No, and it's interesting, and Svetlana, just something you can actually agree or disagree. But one of the things in Ukraine that I see a little bit of is Ukraine is going through this process of defining what is Ukraine. It is not Russia. It is not Soviet Union. So what is it? And part of the dialogue that's happening now is around how do you define a country and who you are? And what's interesting and that I like very much here is a lot of it is actually starting to evolve around values rather than a hardcore ideology of something. And so that makes Ukraine a little bit different from other places in how it's developing, because it's not a single nationalistic. In fact, yesterday, Svetlana and I were talking about something, and one of the things that makes Ukraine very good is there's actually a diversity of language and culture and artistic influence and historical influence. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic that's happening here.
Thank you. I can see John has managed to enable his webcam, so thank you, John. And Larry is back. Larry, are you going to tell us the components of the cultural dynamic?
Not really. I thought I would tell you that I'll share the social process with Svetlana and get it out to everybody. And then if we want to talk some more about it next week, I'm glad to. But I think the flow of the conversation keep going. I don't want to have.
I remember Martin and Larry. I remember components, but it's limited in English. I can say in Russian, but I learned these components. I know it's for sure. I like this. I agree.
Let me move us on, if I may, from the talk of models and theory to practical life and practical work of development. How does this definition and how does our conversation so far? How does it relate to our practical experience, our lived experience of development?
Yeah, for the case of what I've seen out here is that describing development is a very complex process because it depends on the context.
Yeah.
So when we talk about expanding the richness of human life, globalization has helped us have more or less the same ideas of development, but in the ground, at the community level, the idea of what richness of human life means to people really differs. Maybe, for example, I'll give the example of LGBT rights here, for example, in Kenya. For most other places, this is something that is very key to push for, but maybe for the context here, especially at the community level, you'll find that most people are not ready to accept LGBT rights as, at the same level as other rights, disability rights, gender rights, and other types of rights. So on the practical level, I think the context can really determine what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Nancy. I mean, richness of human life surely can only be determined by the individual. It's going to differ from culture to culture, isn't it? And it's going to differ from subculture to subculture and individual to individual. Anybody else? How does our definition so far of human development, how does this relate to your own experience?
So as a definition, I feel it aims towards an inclusive growth of economy, people, and culture. So as a definition, that's what it stands for. However, like what's being discussed is the reality is very different. So if I have to take the case of India, so culturally we are very evolved, we are very diverse. We have I don't know how many thousands of languages that are spoken in our country, various dialects which are there, different religions that are being practiced. And so at individual level, I also see we have a lot of issues on tolerating different religions. Even today there are various other strikes which are happening. As far as economy is concerned, so we have again very, very distinct socio-economic strata in our country, and because of that there are issues. So if I look at it from every aspect, our country is going through a huge transformational process. And if I had to put this definition, I think in India we need to develop at all levels. So as an economy, yeah, we are growing. There are a lot of business opportunities, but are we growing together? Are people growing at the same level? That's something which where a lot of work needs to be done.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
And when I see here is this growing up process in Ukraine, and I understand this growing up never come without conflict. and not also conflict with guns, but conflict, internally conflict. And in my practice here in Ukraine, I see it very much, and I feel it very much in any level. As Deborah says, that we grew up very fast here in Ukraine. It's true, and to keep balance in this process very, very difficult. And because we have really different understanding what does it mean normal for for world, and we are living during not less than 26 years of independence in abnormal situation, which we are thinking it's normal, because if we don't think it's normal, we will lose our mind for sure. And we left before 60 years in a really strange environment also. And I think about conflict. We live in conflict each day, each minute. A conflict in culture, understanding what is normal, what is balance, and like we live in conflict social process. Social process paramount here. And if you want to feel it, you're welcome to Ukraine and learn something more.
Thank you. Yes, we're talking already about the challenges, aren't we? What some of the challenges for human development include conflict, responding to conflict, and also inclusivity. How can we develop in such a way that everybody benefits from increasing richness of human life? What are some of the other challenges or some of the opportunities of human development in the world today, in your own particular places perhaps, but also in the world in general? What are some challenges or opportunities? Welcome back, John.
Thank you.
Nancy, you've written the consensus on the direction of growth development. Would you like to expand on that?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about the key challenges and opportunities when Svetlana mentioned conflict. And I saw you made a point there that conflict and tension is always something that will happen when we grow up. And I was thinking, okay, so in deciding the direction of growth, consensus is usually the problem. What is development to all of us? What direction do we want to take, yeah? Yeah, so I just thought, wow, is it possible to have...
Thank you. Yes, consensus is a challenge. I would argue it's also...
Sorry?
Yes, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, yeah, yes, building consensus is certainly a challenge. I would argue it's also an opportunity, because it's so seldom even attempted, and it's you know, there are ways to do it. Anybody else? What are some challenges or opportunities where you are, or from your perspective?
And consensus is very important challenge here in Ukraine to resolve. It's first step to resolve conflict. But if we are looking for next steps, next challenges, will be to create joint plan and to follow this plan together. Because what I found in Ukraine, for example, it's very difficult for us to follow plan, to believe in this plan. This plan is right, and follow this plan deeply.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You know, that's actually an interesting point, because one of the things I've noticed is that there tends to be kind of this human impatience, that we want things to change right now and want everything to happen right now. And there are sometimes times where literally there is time that is needed to evolve away from one framework or one reference to another. And maybe one of the challenges, or maybe even a better way to say, one of the opportunities, is to help people understand what the evolution of change is, and that it is not going to be immediate, it is not going to be tomorrow, but that these are the steps that you know, a human or a society goes through in terms of growing or changing.
Thank you. Larry, you've written consensus is formed in the past mindset. Would you like to expand on that?
Well, no, it's just something that occurred to me while we were talking about human development and cultural development and the need for it, but then in urgent times or difficult times, often that's set aside for some priority like survival.
Mm.
And then Svetlana mentioned consensus, and then it occurred to me, but often the consensus is actually based on the past, not based on the future, and therefore the consensus is actually kind of limited. And so what does it mean to not disrespect the consensus, but to build the new consensus?
Mm.
Anyway, that was what my note was. I'm trying to take notes on what other people are saying, but it's also stimulating my thinking. So I'm
good. That's what we're here for. Thank you, John. I'm sorry you've been dropping in and out a bit, presumably because of your connection. What would you see as some of the challenges and opportunities for human development from where you are, from your perspective?
Again, I got the first bit and the last bit.
What would you see as some challenges or opportunities for human development? I guess you're not hearing. I'm sorry for that.
John,
yeah,
you can.
The challenges, like I've alluded to, is so. Maybe I'm going back a bit, but I've missed a lot. You know, economic and material success, and that's very deeply drilled into everybody's heads from a young age. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it really hard for people to really, even if they have a sense that there are other things in life. You know, the dominant ideology is constantly telling us, you know, you have to have pay a job, you have to have a good house, good things, you know, and it's you know, beyond maybe people's basic needs. It becomes really hard with an organisation in Kenya, which is called Ujamaa Center. Now Ujamaa is the principle really of communitarianism, African socialism, if you want to call it that. And people were really struggling with, you know, what does this mean in today's world, you know, where almost everywhere people have lost this sense of community and this sense of supporting and, you know, developing each other as well as ourselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a struggle, you know, and you get a few bright moments. So a couple of days later I happened to be with another group of young people, and I shared, so excited about it. They wanted to talk about it, they wanted to engage in it. But you tend to get only flickers, you know, you only get moments of excitement, and I think that's the big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And John,
Nancy,
I totally agree with you. And I said that I totally agree with John, and I wanted to say before that it seems like we must to change markers of success, or marks of success, and because these marks didn't allow a young generation to move on, to grow up, or to find own way, and to be really next generation. And because old generation like blocked young generation with our markers of success.
Thank you. So we're moving on already, aren't we, to what sort of responses are called for in our societies and organizations, but also from each of us, from those who care to make a positive contribution to human development. What kind of responses are called for? One is to change our markers of success. Nancy, were you about to speak?
Not really, but maybe what I'll comment is that as we look at this, I just go back to what Lawrence mentioned earlier. At the end of the day, survival takes precedence. So in all our programs to sort of establish and promote human development, the first basis needs to, again, it's unfortunate that we go back to the economy, but people need first to have food on the table.
Right.
Yeah, then we will bring in inclusion, yeah? As long as we are on the level of survival, that will hold us back. Yeah, so the sort of responses we need is just to start from the basic, yeah?
Right. To start from where people are. You're not going to
Yeah.
have a rich human life if you're hungry or lacking shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? What sort of responses are called for?
I'm sorry, I'm not contributing much because my own experience at grassroots level human development is really like very low. So my experience completely from the corporate sector. So,
Well, there are humans at every level of
I'm going to
society
listen.
and economy, aren't there?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
There are humans at every level of society and
Yeah.
economy and
So-
culture. So I mean, one of the things I've appreciated over the years about ICA's approach to development and human development is, yes, of course, it's about responding to basic needs and addressing poverty and inequality and so forth. But actually, it's about all people, everywhere, at all time. It's about the whole system. And rich people are just as much in need of human development as poor people, but maybe it's a different response in that different context. Maybe they need less food, less material wealth. Maybe they need more meaning and less economics. In some cases, maybe people need more economics, less of something else. In your own case, in corporate, do you work in the corporate sector in India,
Yes.
Anu?
Yes, yes.
What kind of response in that context is needed to help people live richer lives at work?
So what I see is that at work, firstly, they look at bringing an inclusive environment by looking at diversity. So Nancy brought about LGBT. We also have, even having women in the workplaces, it's only over the last 10 years that we've seen more and more women in the corporate sector. So including more women, including in the LGBT community, people with disabilities, providing them opportunities, suitable opportunities, and also, you know, helping them to develop skills. Where women are working, then also looking at, you know, what kind of maternity benefits can they get? Can we introduce, a lot of things are very new in the corporate sector, like, you know, include having flexible work hours. So there are many, many things that are happening, which I see in the corporate sector is more towards human development, because the whole idea is that and I take it back to from the country spirit also, okay, is that each employee has to feel that I belong to this organization. It's not that the organization is taking care of, not just the organization taking care of me, but that I belong here and I feel wanted in this place. And I take that, that's the same spirit that I would look at from the country level, and that's something which we in India are struggling, because we don't have one strong ideology that we are all working over. So we have many political parties, and everyone seems to be driven by their own agenda, and I feel the people factor and the human factor is getting lost in the process. And that's my concern. When you said the challenge, I think this is our biggest challenge, that we don't seem to be working in unison towards one goal.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Go ahead, Deborah.
I'm just curious. So differences there then are seen more as a threat than as an opportunity or something that you can learn from or use pieces of others? Does that make sense?
Sorry? Deborah,
I'm sorry. I was just curious then, so that differences, like with what you're explaining, are seen more as threatening rather than as opportunities to learn from or incorporate other pieces. Is that sort of what you're saying?
I think I'm still not getting the question. Are you... I'm sorry, I'm just not getting the question. If somebody could just...
I may have misunderstood. It's okay. You can move on. It's okay.
Well, what I heard you saying was that it's not so much they're seen as the differences are seen as a threat, as it's a brand new idea to really incorporate that into the corporate environment, and therefore just figuring out what that means and how to do
No,
that.
no,
Do it.
no, no. It's not a threat. I'm not saying it's a threat. I'm saying that these are opportunities which organizations are leveraging on, and to see how to bring in more and more people and help them to grow within the organization and make them feel a part of it. No, no, not a threat at all. And that's a spirit that I'm hoping that we take it back to the society. And that's again organizations. Yeah, and organizations have a corporate social responsibility now, mandated to spend certain hours and certain amount of money where they take back, they do conscious work with the community. So I think that's where our economy and the social and the cultural aspect is getting integrated. These are baby steps, but at least we are making these attempts.
I work a lot in the corporate as well, and I feel like the corporate, the question is, relative to human development, the question is perceiving human development comprehensively rather than seeing people development as a toolbox question. In other words, how am I developing people to be the tools to do what we need, or how am I developing people to be people? And I think that's the challenge. And it's in the community development side, it's sort of the same way, in the sense of, are we developing people to survive, or are we developing people to thrive? And so it's a challenge in our community work and our corporate work and everything else to expand the context of human to not be just immediate need, but to be a more comprehensive question. And the good news is, when organizations or communities start to ask that question, they find great benefit, in the sense that they begin to see people as people, they begin to see each other in a community as people, and everything changes. And
Thank you. I'm aware that our hour is almost up. I would like to invite Larry in a couple of minutes to give us a brief commercial for why we should come back next week to look at approaches that work in human development with him. But while he's preparing that, let me just ask if anybody else would like to share just one insight that will stay with them from our conversation today about what we mean by human development. Anybody like to share an insight or a reflection on today's dialogue?
I want to say about what I understand more, that one of the positive things which we can bring to society to understand and to feel value of each other. If we understand value each other, it doesn't matter what language we are talking, and it doesn't matter what words we are using. It doesn't matter what dress we are wearing. But if we understand values of each other and go together in one room, we can bring additional value for society for sure.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I'm very happy to have. Okay, go ahead, Deborah.
No, I was just going to say, it really made me more cognizant of needing to talk about, when you talk about development, that it's not just the social and the political, that it's the human side as well. That's very fundamental for the conversation, but that has really been a big aha for me.
Thank you. Anupama.
Yeah, so I'm very happy I attended, because there was another commitment which came and I consciously cancelled and was part of this conversation. So yeah, the definition is, I think it just reiterates the work, or it's a positive affirmation of the work that is already being done in the space of inclusion, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nancy
Martin.
or John?
Sorry?
I was inviting Nancy or John. Would you like to share a reflection on today's dialogue? Maybe they're not hearing.
Oh yeah, hello, hi.
Yes, go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I found it interesting just to question and to go back to the premise of human development, which is what we are doing, but we really don't think about the definition, and to just link it to practice. Very useful. Very interesting.
Thank you very much. John, last word?
Well, I hope I get a bit more from next week than I did this week because of the internet.
Maybe you should take the call from where Nancy is, where she has a better connection.
No, basically your face up there, Martin, and Martin is one of the many years ago, so it's always good to reconnect.
Good to have you with us, John. I'm sorry you've not been able to participate as fully as you would like. Thank you all very much. I'm sorry I'm not able to join again myself next week, but let me hand over to Larry for just a couple of moments. A quick commercial, Larry. Why should we come back?
I have no idea. We're going to talk about application next week. We're going to talk about, now that we've begun to discuss the what, or the what we intend, or what we're thinking about intending with human development. How do we do that? What's our experience of doing it? What's also places where we'd like to explore and things like that? Other than that, I don't know yet. I got to think about it now that we've had this conversation.
Well, all of us have food for thought, I think, for the next week. So thank you very much indeed for joining the dialogue. Thank you, Svetlana, for hosting us.
Thank you, MediaIC, for technical support. And thank you, everybody, for to involve in this conversation. Thank you. It was a great conversation. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you. See you next week.
See you. Bye.
See you. Bye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Have a great day.